Paris, of course. I'm going to turn my video off just so it doesn't get confusing. So if you go to the black screen, it says Claudine, you know, I put a little note in the chat today about making sure that you find Kate's image. We have Kate with us, wonderful Kate with us today. We just were talking about the wonderful makeup and and lipstick and wearing a mask. That was our pre-show chat. You want to make sure you click on her image, and in the top right hand corner there's a little blue oval kind of shaped button, and you click on that and click pin, so that way you get to see her image and hear me yapping around about I cannot wait to get back into this museum that we're going to show you first thing today. Hi Coretta. Hi Carol. It's nice that we have some music. YouTube's probably not going to like that when we repost this later, but we'll have to see. So we'll just get letting everybody in here real quick. I hope you guys are all having a fantastic Sunday, where it's the last day of February. That means March. We're so close to spring, so close to flowers and blossoms. Oh, and hello, Dawn. Of course, I can never forget Dawn and Carol. So I think we have most everybody here. We'll just go ahead and get started if we could, you know, talk over this guy. So this is, if you don't know this museum, if you've been in Paris in the last 4 years, you would not have been able to go to this museum, but hopefully before that you did. This is actually the Musee Carnavalet, and it's probably the most eagerly anticipated reopening of a museum in French history. It's actually the museum dedicated to the history of Paris. So it's a really, like, for me, the first time I went, I ended up actually being able to go in here just days before it closed. At that point, 2/3 of the museum was already closed off, which was kind of sad, but I cannot wait to get back in. But it dates back to, it opened in 1880, and it was spurred on by Baron Haussmann, who, of course, you know, is the man that we know that redesigned Paris, the streets. Some people don't really love what he did, but, you know, a lot of the beautiful things that we know today is because of what Haussmann and Napoleon III did. Sadly, you know, they took out a lot of their properties and buildings, but they created these grand vistas, but he really wanted to spearhead this museum dedicated to the history of Paris. The Hotel Carnavalet was built in 1548 by Pierre Lescaut, who you might know from our past chats when we talk about the Louvre. He was Henry IV's one of his personal architects, and so he did a lot of work on the Louvre and a lot of places in Paris. It was built for Jacques de Ligny, who was served on the Parliament of Paris. And it was, this whole area at one point was a convent. We're on the edge of where we'll see part of the wall, the Philippe Auguste wall that surrounded Paris. So this whole area, there was a lot of convents and churches in this area. And so they had this built based right around the corner. Inside, Jean Goujon, who was another person that you would know from the Louvre. He worked really closely with Lescaut. Jean Goujon is the one who, if you've been in the Louvre and you've gone into the Salle des Caryatides with those 4 amazing women that are holding up the musician's balcony, he designed those. So the two of them worked on this. Goujon did a lot of the work and adding statues on the side of the building. In 1578, it was purchased by François de la Beaume, who was a widow of François de Carnavalet. So that's where it finally gets its name. The names of things in Paris sometimes come from the original, sometimes they come down the road. It just seems to see which things get a stick, throw it against the wall and stick. But in 1652, Claude Blousselet asked Francois Mansart, who's another very famous French architect. If you love the roofs of Paris, it's because of Mansart. He is the one that kind of designed that very geometric shaped roof with the tiles. Oh, Michelle, it's the Musée Carnavalet. So So most of the time, this has fallen into different hands over time. At one point, the Marquise de Sévigné lived here. She lived there from 1664 to 1695. She was a lady of letters. The street around the corner was named after her as well. We will be doing a podcast episode about her pretty soon. She was pretty fascinating. But in 1866, Haussmann suggested that they open up a museum to hold the city's collection, which had been in the Hotel de Ville, but it didn't move in time. And so most of the collection that was in the Hotel de Ville, everything was damaged in the fire. So most of it was lost. So a lot of the things that we see today came after that and came from different places. But inside the museum, it's fascinating. It's filled with statues and art. I mean, thousands and thousands of pieces. There's old signs from cafes. There's actual full rooms that were taken out of, different shops in Paris before that were Art Deco and Art Nouveau and before they were destroyed. There's things in here that date back to Gallo-Roman times, so all the way back and up close to the 20th century. So it's a fascinating museum. When you walk in, you could kind of see him in the very center. If it's such a bright sunny day, but if we look right through the center, you could see there is a statue of Louis XIV, of course. And there's also a relief on the wall of Henry IV. So two of the biggest kings that had the most influence over Paris and how it looks, Henry IV and Louis XIV. So they stand over there. The garden is really neat. I posted a picture that I took in 2016 of the garden, and it's very French, and it's really neat. They have these shrubs that they go, have these really flourishy, beautiful shapes, and then they have colors underneath it. So you look down and it's orange underneath it or yellow. But I cannot wait. And most everybody is just salivating at this opening of this museum. Again, it was supposed to open last spring, but with everything that happened, but they do say it is. It's pretty sure that it will open this spring. So when we all return, we'll be able to get there. So we cannot wait. And you have the H in there, the door, of course. But it looks like, to me, it's just about ready. The door is, of course, gorgeous. Yeah. Oh, and if I forget this every single time, if you're on an iPad or a iPhone, just double click Kate and it will stay on your screen. So we're going to head down the street. Here's our gentleman that was singing to us. But it's another really nice day. Kate says it's a little chilly, but it is sunny and nice in Paris. And then we're going to head down just behind the museum, where there is a very special little park. We are, of course, in the Marais today, which is a favorite for many people. They love the Marais. We're going to head to outside quite a few museums and different parks and some of that stuff to show you. So we'll I'm sure do many different tours of the Marais, because there's so much. I mean, it's Paris. There's so much of everything. Oh, good, Jan, you all set up. But you love all these buildings here. Most of the buildings in the Marais date to the 17th and 18th century. The Marais, of course, it translates to swamp. So it wasn't, there was a lot of farms, and in the early days out here, it wasn't a very desirable place to be because of it was called the swamp, and the soil wasn't great to be building on. And then they decided at one point it was quite the chic place to be. And then eventually the monarchy that had built all these different little Hôtel Particulier and some small palaces decided that they didn't want to be there anymore. So they went over to Saint-Germain. Trina, I think the vaccinations are moving very slowly in France, unfortunately. Oh, we got a lot of people in the park. But I think they're picking up. They did a lot better job with testing, so hopefully that means that they'll get a lot better with the vaccination. So this park here, this was one that I had to search out. I had it at the top of my list on one of my visits. It's the Square Georges Quint, and this is where on the back wall of the Carnavalet now. But against the wall, you have all of these really fantastic things. There is the rose there on the wall. You have different pieces here that are from the Tuileries, the Palais des Tuileries, and the Hotel de Ville. On the pediment right there that we're looking at, that is actually was from the Tuileries, and it had a clock, and you could actually see the burn marks on this. If you did the walk, when we walked around the Eiffel Tower, we saw some other pieces from the Hotel de Ville and the Tuileries. But I love that they saved these things and they have them in a park. It looks like that's actually been cleaned up quite a bit. It used to be pretty black. But I love that they saved these. They were able to save these things and we could still see them in Paris. We might not see the palace and we might not see the original Hotel de Ville, except for the Hotel de Ville now is basically was redone in this original Renaissance style. So the one we see today is pretty close. But I love that they have all of these pieces in the park. Also, another wonderful little tip, a lot of parks in Paris have Wi-Fi. So if you're over there and you don't have you don't have an international plan or you want to save money on that, pop into the parks. There's not sometimes the greatest Wi-Fi, but it is great. Another great thing to do on a side note is just to get a Orange holiday SIM card. You could get one for about $30. And it gives you like unlimited everything and you just pop it into your phone. You could even purchase it right at the airport. I years ago bought mine on Amazon and then I just keep it and re-up it. So I have the same number, but for $30 for 3 weeks, it's a lot better than what you're going to probably be paying to your American provider. This little park, Georges Quint, was one of the early he worked at the Musée Carnavalet. He was one of the very first directors and he worked there. So it's nice that they named this park after him. That was right on the back wall. In the very center of that, where all the people are, is a statue by Aristide Maillot, who, and it's called Ile-de-France. If you, of course, walk between the Tuileries and the Louvre, you see all of those really great bronze sculptures of women that fill through the shrubs and everywhere between the top of the Tuileries and the Arc de Triomphe carousel. Those are also all by Maillot. He there's a really fantastic, very small museum of his in the 7th. It always has really fantastic, well curated exhibitions. That's where I saw Don and Carol. And it has a few of his sculptures in there as well, but it's definitely one of my favorite museums to go check out. There's lots of dogs, there's lots of everybody there. Yes, but remember last weekend, if you were watching last weekend and we walked through Place de la Contrescarpe and we walked down Rue Mouffetard and there were so many people out there enjoying the sunshine and having some drinks. Well, the next day, the city of Paris said they're closing out the Place de la Contrescarpe and the Rue de Bussy for outdoor drinking, no more drinking outside. So we did notice there was quite a few people and Paris could be on the verge of another lockdown. So we're gonna go to the right. And we're going to go to the right. And there's another park that's right next to this one, just right on the other side of this little building. You never have too many parks in Paris. Oh, yes, Carol, we were shushed. We were standing there chatting and people were shushing us. I was standing there taking photos. It was the Rousseau exhibition, wasn't it? The Rousseau. And I was taking a bunch of pictures of paintings and I kept seeing this nice couple looking at me, and I thought, am I doing something wrong? Are they mad that I'm taking pictures? And then they said, aren't you Claudine Hemingway? And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm all right. And had a lovely chat. But this park right next door that we're going to walk into briefly is the Square Leopold Achille. And it was, doesn't have all the super fancy things at the park we just saw, but it does have a statue right back there. You can kind of see it against the wall, the statue of Pomol. And it was saved from the Hotel de Ville. So it was inside the Hotel de Ville, and luckily it survived. And it now is in the garden. Again, I just love that they do this and they save these things. But there's, the gardens aren't a museum, so you don't usually ever have notes that, or plaques that say that this is where this was from. Sometimes those green signs that you could find on the gate, sometimes they will have that information on there. But it takes a little sleuthing. But I do love that they could save some of these things. She might need a little cleanup. So lovely. But these parks, people in Paris have rather tiny apartments, so the parks are perfect. And if you're there on a sunny day, pulling up a chair or sitting in a bench with a book on a sunny day in Paris, it's just about one of the best things that you could do. Just taking a moment to check everything out. This area right here, this park, at one point before, it was all part of the convent, but it was also we're really close to where the right there, those images there on the side. This is really cool. Can you recognize what animal those are? So those are salamanders. And the salamander was the basically Francois Premier's his icon. So he has that on everything. If you go to a lot of the different chateaus in the Loire, you can see that. You have, of course, the F for Francois. But there's a lot of salamanders here. I tried to actually look up to see what all of the different animals the different kings used, but not all of them did that. That one's a little bit better shape, but you have, of course, the Francois, the F. Francois was, his mother was kind of obsessed with the Italian Renaissance, and it rubbed off on him. And Francois is the one that really kind of recreated the monarchy in Paris, turning it from medieval to, having salons and fancy parties. And he was the one, of course, that, met Da Vinci and brought him back to Paris or to France and to the Loire, and ended up purchasing quite a few of his paintings, including, of course, the Mona Lisa. And that was basically the start of the collection of the Louvre. So we love Francois. But this whole area, we're really close to where the Hotel de Tournelle was. And the Hotel de Tournelle is where Henry II and Catherine de Medici lived. And it was also where he took part in a jousting tournament and ended up getting stuck in a piece of the lance came off and got into his eye, and he ended up dying. And so after he died, Catherine decided to demolish everything. She decided to move away from there. She didn't want any more memories of it. And later, the Hotel de Tournelle was destroyed, and it stretched all the way over to like where Place des Vosges is. But this is kind of where we were. This was all part of, this was a garden at one point for the Hotel de Tournelle. Such a pretty day. The house right here that we were just looking at was the Hotel Crowley, and it was actually for Nicolas de Crowley, who is the king's advisor, Louis XIII, built in 1620, with that really fantastic blue door here. And then we're going to head over down this. I just love, I don't know, I love this little stretch of the street right here. It's just so quaint. The Marais, for the most part, was left alone by Haussmann. He did some of this, he did some things in there, but for the most part, he kind of left it alone. So you have a lot of these very old streets. I love this. I love this little let's all just move into that little gate, right behind that gate. We need some tea. But I love this little street because it's just so quaint and so perfect. Do a little window licking, as they call it in French. But this little, we're stepping in right now, this the Place de Thorigny, and this is just, it stretches and meets up with the Rue de Thorigny, which is where the Musée Picasso is, which is where we're going to take you next. It was named for Jean-Baptiste Claude Lambert de Thorigny. He was president of the second chamber in 1713. And this building right here on the right, this very modern looking building, it's obviously not the original building that was there, but at one point, another one of our ladies from the podcast, she actually had stayed there, Ninon de Lanclos, which was a courtesan in Paris at the time. This was the home of Marion Dubonnet. She was a very famous courtesan, and she kind of taught Ninon the ropes. And she lived in a building that was stood here before this more modern. This is definitely a little bit more modern looking than it would have been at the time. But she lived right there in that house. And then we're coming up to another lady that I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode. This little tiny park here is the Jardin Berthe. We have a podcast episode coming up about her on the 22nd, so just in a few weeks. She was the first woman art dealer in Paris. She ended up discovering, and through somebody else, in 1900, Pablo Picasso, when he first came to Paris. And so she really became one of his very first dealers, and she sold his first paintings. So she, over time, she definitely had her own way of thinking. She really championed women artists. And over time, she wasn't the smartest businesswoman. So her business didn't last forever. But later, because she was so beloved by the artists, and she gave Modigliani his first and only exhibition. She worked with Picasso. But a lot of these artists kind of just walked away from her. Because they were getting more lucrative offers. Because she wasn't the greatest business person, they noticed that they could get more money elsewhere. But then later on in her life, when she was really down and out and didn't have any money left, all of these artists, including Picasso, rallied together and held a big auction and sold a lot of their paintings, giving her money that was set up for the rest of her life. So she's a pretty fascinating woman. I can't wait for you guys to listen to that episode of La Vie Creative, Paris History of Becca Hemingway. And that one's going to be on March 22nd. And I do love that they put this park in right next to the Picasso Museum. So if you've, even if you aren't, I think Picasso is one of those people that they either love him as an artist or they don't. But even if you don't, go to this museum. So this is the Musée Picasso du Paris, and it is in this building, the Hotel Soleil. It was built in 1658 for Pierre Albert Séninier. He was a salt tax collector, which is where you get the name Soleil. And back then, that's why when you hear people say it's worth your salt, because salt was such a prized possession and cost so much money. And that's where you also get the word salary from. But this guy made a lot of money. So he had this really beautiful house built that's on the other side, sadly, of this gate. And with architect Jean Boulier, and designed this huge mansion. Gaspard and Balthazar Marais did all of the sculptures that you'd see on the building. Inside of it, it's really fascinating. It's just absolutely beautiful. The staircase is absolutely wonderful. I will definitely share some pictures of it. But then Saleh, Mr. Tax Guy, was close friends with Nicolas Fouquet. And Nicolas Fouquet was the Vaux-le-Vicomte chateau. He worked under Louis XIV. He had this huge party. He had this beautiful chateau built with using Alexandre Lenoir for the gardens, and Charles Lebrun and Louis Laveau. And he had this beautiful chateau created, and he invited Louis and his gigantic entourage over for dinner. Well, Louis was so upset and wondered, where did he get the money to pay for this? And he was jealous. And so he had Fouquet arrested and thrown into jail. And then Louis went and took all of his artists, and then he decided to create Versailles. So when that happened to Fouquet, our friend here that had the Hotel Saleh was close friends with him, so he got the same fate. He was also thrown into prison. The building went through many different hands. At one point, it was a church that, or I'm sorry, a school that Balzac had gone to. And then later on, it was decided after Picasso died, the state ended up getting a very large amount of his art. They, just a few years before he died on April 8th, 1973, he was 91 years old. It was a law was passed that heirs could help pay inheritance tax by donating, giving art to the state, so that could pay off. But it couldn't just be anything you wanted. They definitely, went through and decided, pick through it. So, of course, Picasso and his estate owed a lot of money to this to the country, and his last wife, Jacqueline, ended up giving more than 5,000 pieces of art. So the city of Paris had all this art. They had to decide what to do. So they ended up turning the Hotel Saleh into the Musee Picasso. A few years later, when Jacqueline died, and they ended up getting, in 1986, which was a year after the museum opened, they ended up getting even more art. It's an amazing museum. It's so well done. They do special exhibits, but because they have so much of his art, including a lot of his personal collection of Cézannes and Renoirs and Rousseau, they constantly are changing their permanent collection. One of my very favorite things that he ever did was he did copies of Manet's Déjeuner sur l'herbe. And of course, they're all in Picasso style. So, they're not exact copies, and they're, there's a little cubism in there, but he worked on those in the last years of his life for over 10 years and did hundreds of different images of Déjeuner sur l'herbe, and they have a room in here, and they probably change them out once a year. So, the Picasso Museum is, if you've gone once and you think I don't need to go again, definitely go again, because they do a really great job. The inside is really beautiful. You look out onto this garden here, the Jardin Hotel Saleh. But it's also called the Lenore Fini, who was a surrealist painter. She was a female surrealist painter. So I really love that on both sides of the museum, you have these two gardens named for these two women in art. But definitely go check it out. Have you guys been there? Have you been to the Picasso? They did also, I believe they had a big renovation. I think it reopened in 2016 or 17. But it's very well done. It's very well laid out. The inside staircase is gorgeous. Oh yes, Jan. Yeah, being jet lagged is a little hard sometimes. I push it through all the way to as far as I can, but I've had times where I sit down and try to eat something for dinner, and I can't even hold a fork. I have there's nothing working anymore. There's quite a few people, of course. We're on now Rue de Ville du Temps. this building right here that's sadly covered with scaffolding on the right was the Hotel de Montmore, built in 1623. His son Henry Louis took it over, and he actually created the Academy of Science in France. Many different people at one point had come through here, including Moliere, of course, Mr. The playwright of France. But sadly, it's all covered up. So hopefully when we get back, we could see that. Nothing's more heartbreaking than going to see a building and then you realize it's covered with scaffolding. There's a lot of people out. There is talks of a 3-week lockdown coming in France, but we'll still be able to bring you the videos because this is a job. So we could still do it. Oh, you can see part of the door that's left. All that new, fresh stone, all cleaned up. Sometimes it's nice when it's still just old and dirty. Further down on this street, we won't walk past it, but there's another really great museum in the Hotel de Saint-Aignan. It is the Museum of Art and History of Judaism. It was built in 1645, the building itself was, and they decided later to turn it into the Museum of Jewish Art and History. I've seen a couple exhibits. There was one about Sigmund Freud. There was one about, oh my gosh, I just lost her name. Eileen, it'll come to me. The makeup, she created a huge makeup, Rubinstein, I believe. That's a really great door. But they do a really great job with exhibits there too. So definitely go and check that out. They also have a lot. She was a huge art collector. And so they have a lot of her art that was there. She used to live on the Ile Saint-Louis, and if you were on our Ile Saint-Louis walk, we showed the building where there was this amazing, beautiful hotel that dated back quite a long time. She had it taken down and built definitely a much more modern building there, but it kind of streamlines with everything else. But during World War II, the Germans were in there, and there was bullet holes in the furniture and everything, so she just left it. That building just to the left with the turret on it is another really cool one. It dates back quite a long time. Of course, unfortunately, during World War II, it was almost destroyed by a German bomb that landed close by here on the street, killing 66 people. But they, over time, completely restored it. And the turret is part of the turret is original and still left there, but it's a really really cool building. You've definitely seen a picture of that building many times on Instagram. And then we're just gonna keep what's going on here. Everybody's watching something. Our investigative reporter will get in there. Oh, just the music. How nice to see the streets with people again. So we're walking down right now. We are going to head, there's a church right up here on the left. We are on the Rue de Franc Bourgeois. And this area, of course, still was covered with churches. We are right in, just on the side of where the wall actually cut through. This church right here is the Notre Dame des Blancs Manteaux, and it was a church there was a church that stood here back in 1257, and then this one was built in its place. It's a rather small church, and it's kind of funny because it just kind of sticks out, it's just kind of here on the corner. Um, so it's a interesting church. It's not very big inside. But it is was originally the church that originally stood here was dedicated to the servants of the Blessed Virgin, and they wore white coats, and so that's why it's blanc manteau. But right outside here, right in this, right basically in this very spot where Kate is, long before that, a pretty horrible thing happened. It was the site of the murder by Jean Saint-Peur, which if you're in Paris and you want to see something medieval, go see the tower that's on that's in the, I think it's in the fourth. But he wanted to, he didn't like his cousin very much. And his cousin was Louis, who was a younger brother of Charles VI. So on November 23rd, 1407, just outside the doors of the church that we see right here, Louis was attacked by 12 men with axes and killed. They ended up bringing his body into the church that had stood there before the one we see today. And then his wife, Valentine Visconti, tried to avenge his death and try to get justice, and they never were able to do that. She died a year after he did, but basically that action ended up starting a war between different branches of the Valois family. Look at that beautiful blue door. And then we have kind of a fun little find up here on the left side in a few minutes, number 57. Good morning, Cheryl. Oh, I always wave and I realize my camera's not even on. But here on this street, right after this building, I don't know if it might be easier to try to get to the other side of the street, Kate, if possible, just above this red door, because it's kind of something up and behind it. So I don't think we could see it we might be able to see it better from across the street. But behind where that bank is a remnant of the wall of Philippe Auguste. Going back to the 13th century. It is, oh no, we can't see. Can we not see? Maybe it's past it. Or maybe is it to the right? Let's go to your right a little bit. Oh yeah, keep going. Other door, other red door. Oh, and more scaffolding. They have all this time when they're closed. Let's get all these things, just get them all wrapped up and done. But back here behind that door, you could see it. Okay, here we are. So here is a tower. It's the Tower of Pierre Alvarez, what it was called, and it was part of the wall of Philippe Auguste. And it's quite, it's still in, really good condition. And it's one of the few that you could really fully see that remains from the 12th century. Obviously, it's probably been fixed up a little bit over time. But it's really cool that you could see that. And, the thing about Paris is you kind of have to almost have your head on a swivel at all times as you walk, because you can walk right past this and never even know it was there or even see it. So that's such a fun little thing to see in there. I always wonder if the people that work there or live there, do they know? Do you know and how cool it is that you get to live there in this with this huge piece of history. So now we're going to go in and they have to stop for a quick second. Kate reconned this before we started, and they were doing bag checks. And so Lauren is here in the park holding Kate's bag so she could sneak in here quickly. I'm so excited, you guys, that the doors are open for this and we could come here and see. This is one of the coolest things to see in Paris that not a lot of people know. Besides that, you have this beautiful park. But this is where we are right now is is the archives of Paris. So this building right in front of us is the Hotel du Soubi, and it dates back much farther. There was actually quite a few different buildings here over time. We'll see the outside of one of them when we go back out on the street. But it was the Hotel Clisson and the Hotel de Soubi and the Hotel de Guy. And these were all a bunch of course, Hotel Particuliers. Oliver de Casson was a constable of France, and he built uh, a mansion here dating back to 1371, just outside the wall of Philippe Auguste, as we could have seen, as we just saw by the tower. We're just outside the wall now. And so later on in 1470, the English came to Paris and moved in, which, you rarely find that in Paris history, of the English coming and moving in. But they came and they moved in here. Over time, it ended up passing through quite a few different French hands. And then it kind of went down to some princesses were staying in here, and that's when they really fancy this place up. I'm going to put in my newsletter on Wednesday, just if you don't get my newsletter, just go to claudinehemingway.com and sign up. But I'm going to write and have some photos of the inside, and inside is absolutely amazing. You do have the archives of the city, so it is a museum, but you do also have these rooms. There's this one room that's kind of circular in shape, and the ceiling is like painted like Tiffany blue, and it's just with this beautiful chandelier in the middle. It's just absolutely gorgeous. But inside of it, you could see they have a lot of the stuff on display. You could actually see in this double-sided glass window the last letter of Louis the 16th and Marie Antoinette here. So that was pretty amazing to get to be able to see those up front, and they're standing up, so they're double-sided, so you could see it from both sides, and nobody's there. Nobody goes inside here. They do sometimes have some strange hours of when they're open, but if you're, I would say go here in the Hotel de Carnavalet and get your fill of all your French history you could ever want in your life. Over time, the hotels that were here were combined under Napoleon, and he was the one who decided to make this to create this for the archives of the city. It ended up they needed more and more space. So usually you could walk all the way over to the right into the garden. There's quite a few different buildings. Some are quite modern looking, but the archives really stretch out even farther, because there's just so much for them to keep. Again, a lot of the stuff, everything that had been destroyed, the Hotel de Ville in the fire in 1871. So a lot of that stuff was all lost, but everything else is safely kept here. But again, nobody's there. As soon as you walk in that main entrance there, where the columns are, there's a gorgeous staircase that's to the right, to get big, huge marble staircase. The last time I was there, they were just starting some renovation work, so hopefully that's done. But the inside of it actually has also been used, if you like the Marie Antoinette movie by Sofia Coppola, they use the inside of that for some of those. I'm so happy. I told Kate, I was like, well, I hope the garden's open so we could at least see inside. So I'm glad, but there's a bunch of little like nooks and crannies in the garden that go around, and you could, I sat there one day for a while, just sitting there in the sunshine reading, and it was extremely quiet because not many people go all the way in there. But there are some more modern buildings. When it became the Anne de Rohan Chabot, she had married Francois de Rohan Soubi, and that's when they ended up taking over. And we have the name Soubi, and they were the ones that really did a lot of the work inside of it. It is like you'll just have to, if you haven't been inside of it, you'll definitely need to look for the pictures that I'll post in my newsletter, because it's absolutely gorgeous. This building over here to the left with this really pretty red door, it used to be one of the a monastery. And if you look right up there to the right, on the right side of the building, you see on the kind of on the level below the attic, you see in the middle what should be a window. There is just kind of a plaque that's one of the 200 sundials that you could find in Paris. They actually have two of them in the courtyard. That's the only one we could see, of course. It used to be a monastery, and then of course during the revolution, a lot of those things changed. Now it's some just office buildings, offices inside. But I love that blue. Of course, I love the red door. All the red. And then this is what I had mentioned about the Subi. This on the right-hand side where you see the turret. This was actually part of the original building. It's one of the few pieces in Paris that dates back to the 14th century that we can still see. So this is all part now. It's all connected to the Hotel Subi. But that's such a beautiful image of that red door, and then it's you've got all this Gothic touch over the blue door and those turrets. Don't you just want to sit in there and just have like a comfy chair and a book and a cup of tea or a glass of champagne, just sit there and look out the windows? I think it'd be perfect. But yeah, dating back to the 14th century. Sometimes you can't even imagine. Sometimes you hear, in art where it's like, oh, this was created in, 7 AD. But it's wonderful that they've kept this. They've kept the very faint painting up there. And a very old, dirty Paris plaque. All right, to keep heading down this street a little bit. There is here on the left, this building on the left-hand side, you may think looks like a building, but it's actually a fake facade. There's actually a electric transformer behind it. So it's not not exactly a real, it's not people living inside there, but they covered it up and created a facade on it, which is very smart. There's a couple of those in Paris. And then we're gonna go check out this little fountain over here where there is usually, and other times there's a great restaurant that has a lot of outdoor seating. This is a great place to grab lunch if you are in this area, because we're really close to another museum, kind of the hidden Paris secret museum that the people of Paris, it's kind of the one that they love to go to. So we're gonna see that. Is that a palm tree? So here we have this fountain. It's the fountain of Hera, and it used to be actually against the wall. It was built in 1764 to replace a previous fountain, and it was to help serve water to the area. But they pulled it away from the building when they moved and made the street a little bit bigger in 1933. So not that long ago. When you think of Paris, you say 1933. That's not very long ago. But it has this great lion down there where the water would normally come out. He looks very friendly, not like the Saint-Sulpice that Hemingway said were the angriest lions in Paris. And then above it, it has a bas-relief of a nymph, and she's laying on reeds, and then has the urn with some water, usually always the source. Sometimes our technology gets weird. But it's really pretty. It's really nice. This restaurant there to the right. You could just sit outside and, usually the fountain is going. But sadly, it looks like it's probably open for takeaway, but they have all this great outdoor space to go sit at. And then we're going to head over. This is our last little place that we're going to share with you. This is another really great museum. Again, it's closed right now for renovation. It is supposed to open up this spring, but it'd be love to know if you guys have been into this museum over here. This is the here on the corner. These two, it was two different hotel particuliers that were put together to create the Musée de la Chasse et de la Nature, and it's the museum of hunting. And I know that you might think like, oh, I don't think that's something I want to go see, but it's actually a fascinating museum. And the people, this is kind of the people that live in Paris. They actually, this is the museum they love to go to. Again, hardly anybody goes, but it is really interesting inside of it. It's not, you're not going to just, of course, they do have some taxidermy and things like that. But they also have these beautiful rooms decorated with paintings that, you know, have animals in it. They have a room that is just all a lot of guns and ammunition that had belonged to the kings over time. And those are actually really fascinating to look at. They're beautifully carved and, you know, have carved metal and wood and just really beautifully done. But they also do some special exhibits. They had, when I went last, right before they closed, they had one dedicated to horses, like horse racing, and the paintings are beautiful. They also did, if you watch the one when, with about the Louvre, and I think it was my Love in the Louvre chat, we talked about the pyramid. It had one time, they had that gorgeous golden sculpture in the center that was from a couple years ago, and the city of Paris was celebrating a huge anniversary with Japan and the opening up between Japan and Paris. So the city of Paris had different exhibitions and things going on. Well, here in the museum, they had the most amazing, coolest thing you would ever see. They actually, this Japanese artist had taken like taxidermy deers and elk, like full size ones, and they were completely covered with different sizes of glass spheres. And they had, you know, all different sizes on it. And it was, I'll post a picture of it. They were just the coolest things you'd ever seen. And they had, you know, they would do it to different taxidermy. They had a huge one that you know, it was stood like 7 feet high, and you walk past it, and even around every single bit of its antlers, it was completely covered in these glass spheres of different sizes. So you could still sort of see through it and see the, you know, color of their fur. But it was really fascinating. It was absolutely gorgeous. But the museum closed in 2019 for some renovation, and it is supposed to open up this spring. So I keep an eye on all of these because I can't wait for some of these to reopen. And definitely, if you've not been to this one, definitely put it on your list. It's a smaller museum. So, you know, you could probably hit all of these, you know, maybe not Picasso, but you could probably hit the Archives and the Carnavalet and this one all in one day, and stop over here and have some lunch, sit there by the fountain. Oh my gosh, Trina, how many museums? I think there's like I want to say it's like 180 or 200 museums in Paris, and you have everything. I mean, there's a museum of magic. There's a museum of, you know, what's the wax museum, which I haven't gone inside of it because the wax figurines kind of scare me. But they do actually have some historic pieces. They have the bathtub that Marais was killed in, which is a very famous painting by Jacques-Louis David. So there's, oh yeah, well over, I think it's 180 to 200 museums. There is a lot in Paris. So you've got a museum for just about everything you could ever imagine. There's the Prefecture Museum at the police station and I think it's in the 5th, and you could see a guillotine there. There's a museum of medical, which I think you could have to have a strong stomach because they have some strange things in there. The Jardin des Plantes, of course, has a bunch of really great museums, and I'm hoping we're going to go there in the next couple Sundays because I'm trying to make it so that we could go there to see all the cherry blossoms. And they're already blooming in Paris. So hopefully this early they hold on, but there's already been some sightings of pink blossoms in Paris. So there's lots of things. Does anybody have a favorite museum in Paris? Besides the Louvre, of course, the correct answer. I cannot wait to be back there and get inside the Louvre. So hopefully we showed you a few of these things that you could check out when you get back to Paris. Oh, the Marmottan Monet is a fantastic museum too. We love that one. I love that one, that the original Monet impression sunrises there. But yeah, so this is kind of, not the Musée Malo. Yes, Tracy, I love that one too. And that one is funny because it is, if you're in Paris in April and May, and in May when everything is closing all the time because of all the holidays, the Malo is always open on May Day. Oh, the Delacroix. Delacroix is my favorite. That's my very favorite. Oh, it's an Arts and Métiers. Yeah, I know. See, there's just so many. It's hard to, this is why I say I have a 4,000 favorites. So there's so many of them. But, the musique. Oh, yes. I haven't been to that one yet. The Musée de la Vie de Romantique is another fantastic one. Oh, Jacquemart-André. Yes. I love that one, Cheryl. Just going inside that house. Ugh, just amazing. I love it. And another one where there are not many people there. Oh, the Cluny. Yes, the Cluny. Again, also another one that's closed for renovation. So hopefully, I think that's supposed to hopefully open this year, I think. So we'll have to, specifically see the sunrise. Oh my gosh, Carol, that is the worst. That is the worst when you go someplace. I'm surprised they actually loaned something like that out. I mean, that's such a signature piece. That's why the Louvre would never again loan out the Mona Lisa, because could you imagine if people came there and it's not there? But yeah, there's just so many great ones. Again, see, I could say the Louvre's my favorite, and then the Orsay, and then we could be here all day. So, but we hope we showed you some wonderful little places to visit. And I will put in the Facebook event, I will put a copy of this video after I get it uploaded, and some notes. So just in case, the names of the museums and some of those things. So, you could add it to your little notebook for when you return. And today, Crystal and I are going to be doing our monthly book club chat at 10 a.m. You can find it over on our Facebook group. Even if it were this month, we picked her book, which was her book, that Paris, A Life Less Ordinary. So that'll be fun to be able to talk to her about it. And even if you didn't read the book, join us anyway, because it's fun that we're able to sit there and talk to you on Zoom in a way that, we can't necessarily do on these ones. So it's kind of nice that we get to see your face and get to chat with you some more. So definitely do that. And then next Sunday, I think we're going to go because Dawn and Carol asked about Montparnasse, and that's been on the list. So next Sunday, we're going to go up to Montparnasse, where a lot of the historic cafes were, where, Hemingway, of course, and Fitzgerald and all those guys hung out. So we're going to go do that. Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you guys, everybody, for attending and supporting us. We really, really appreciate that. And we love that we could bring Paris to you when sadly we can't get there, but it's going to be soon. I think it's going to be soon. We're going to get back. If I have to start swimming, I'm going to get back. So thank you guys all so much. And you guys have a wonderful Sunday, and join us on our book club if you want. We'd love to see you pop in, even if you want to just pop in and say hi. If you didn't read the book, it's always kind of fun then that way you could really ask us some questions and stuff too. So, and then next month, I'm going to change the book club a little. We're going to have some more historic French books, and not just about French women. So we'll announce the next book at that point as well. So, and it's a really good one. So thank you guys all so much. And we will see you soon and have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday. Oh, and there we have Kate, our wonderful Kate, with that beautiful mask that she made herself. Kate's quite the artist. So definitely find her on Instagram because she does some really great, beautiful work. So thank you so much, Kate and Lauren, if she's sitting back in the park still.
Thanks, Claudine.
Thank you. And have
thank you, everyone.
Wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. A bientôt.
A bientôt.